All right. First of all, there's a principle in physics, probably the principle in physics, called the principle of least action. That every motion that's existing in the entire universe, whether it's a light wave, whether it's an atom, an electron, whether it's a planet, whether it's a star, everything will take the shortest, simplest path, the easiest, simplest. This is how Mother Nature designed it.
Yeah.
Principle of least action. Everything, and when time gets factored in, the shortest path between 2 points is not necessarily a straight line. When time is involved, it turns into a geodesic, which is the shortest space-time route, according to physicists. Anyway, so the whole universe is designed to take the lazy approach. As a matter of fact, in my musical that I referenced earlier, there's a song by Mother Nature.
The musical.
And she sings, "I'm one lazy mama." She explains that she's one. Everything in the universe goes by her vision of taking the easiest, laziest path.
Welcome to the Habits to Goals podcast with Martin Grunburg. It's time to take control of your life. Are you ready to achieve goals faster and more consistently than ever before? You need the Habit Factor. You're listening to Habits to Goals, the podcast that helps you create the habits that lead to success. And here is Martin Grunburg.
All righty, Habits to Goals listeners, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Martin Grunburg. You have reached Habits to Goals, the podcast that helps you understand the importance of aligning your habits to put them at your back so you achieve your goals more easily. Today's guest, speaking of easily, and I've had to track this fine young man down, Fred Gratzon. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did?
Sweet. So Fred Gratzon has written a book that is truly mind-blowing. It's paradigm shifting. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, so bear with me here, because if you're from the school of continuing to work harder and harder, which, don't get me wrong, there's an element that subscribes to that, but wait till you hear what Fred's got to say. He's authored a book entitled, and this is why actually on his website he says this is not a joke. The book is entitled The Lazy Way to Success. Fred, it is a tremendous honor and a privilege to welcome you to Habits to Goals. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, you sound good, and I'm sure you're a very busy man. In addition, and I could have said this in the open, but in addition to being a fantastic author, and by the way, it's beautifully written, Fred is, although I don't like the term serial entrepreneur, he is just that. I just think it's redundant. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. He has had multiple successes in his past. So anyhow, Fred, the way we kick this off, sir, is with something called the GTR, which is the Good Things Report. Now, you can defer to me, or you can go ahead and kick it off. It's your call.
So you just want me to tell you?
Yeah, something. Exactly. Sorry, I thought so the idea is, you say something fantastic that happened today or yesterday. It could be business. It could be personal. It's just a great way to, like I said, break the ice and kick things off.
Okay, well, there's a couple of things that I'm doing these days that are really inspiring me from day to day. This book that I wrote, The Lazy Way to Success, just give it a little background. Hang on, my wife just walked in. I'm on an interview. So please. All right. I had to chase my wife away. I forgot to tell her.
That's all right. That's all right. She's the boss.
That's the things that are happening in my life. I have this wonderful wife. Okay.
There you go.
And that's day to day. Okay. Though I should keep her more informed.
Yeah.
Okay. This book, The Lazy Way to Success, was written several years ago. I think I finished it in 2002. And it's been, I sold the language rights to 10 foreign publishers so far.
Wow.
And it's in its fourth printing in Germany, its second printing in Indonesia. And what's interesting about that, the subtitle of the book is How to Do Nothing and Accomplish Everything.
I love it.
And people say that's completely ridiculous, but I had to tell you that I did absolutely nothing to attract those 10 publishers. They all contacted me, and they gave me money. So I gave them the rights. And anyway, so
that's, go ahead.
What happened? I've gotten fan mail from all over the world. And two readers, independently of each other, suggested I turn it into a musical. Now, I have no background in writing plays, songs. In fact, I can't carry a tune if you welded handles to it. So I was intrigued by the idea. But because I have no real musical skill, I just kind of played with the idea, but always pushed it away. But a couple of years ago, I just said to myself, this is such a good idea, and I'm just going to try to do it. And I have to tell you, I didn't write the music, but the lyrics and the actual libretto, in musical theater, the actual story is called The Book. It just flowed right out of me, and I had such a good time writing it. But I had a hard time finding a composer, because any kind of composer would look at my background and realize, well, I have, this dude has no musical abilities, and he doesn't know what he's doing. But I finally found someone to add the music. He's this kid. I'm 72 years old, so we're definitely an odd couple. He's 29. He's Mexican. He lives in Mexico City. Extremely talented. And we connect over Skype, and he's been adding music to my lyrics. And I have to tell you, I'm having a glorious time. I've never had so much fun. I go to bed giddy just thinking about these silly lyrics. And, there's a serious theme through the musical, obviously, but presented in this lighthearted, just completely silly way. And obviously, nothing could be more unrealistic and more impractical than writing a musical. But I have to tell you, I've never had so much fun. So that's a day-to-day experience for me. That
is a day-to-day, and it's if you can call it that, practicing what you're preaching. It shows you how things will flow. In some ways with just intentionality. And I think that's an amazing GTR. Mine cannot compare. It's simply that I managed to get in the water and surf between coming into the office here. And then, of course, it's always a GTR when I have guests like you. And I'm going to throw on one other thing. I did and I think this is just, Fred, what happens, at least to me, when I just turned 50, and I found myself slightly interested or more interested in my body fat count. So I came in at a 14.8%, which put me at around the 92nd percentile for a now 50-year-older. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but in my book, I'll take it at this point. So that's my GTR. Before we get into the book here, Fred, what I want to do is set the table and just back it up, and maybe, we don't have to go super deep, but just kind of where you grew up, where you went to high school, what kind of student you were. I know some of these answers, where you went to college, how you found your way into some of your entrepreneurial activities. I think that would be a fantastic starting point.
Okay. I was born in Philadelphia. I'm a Philly dog.
All right. Well, you must have loved the Super Bowl.
Are you kidding me? I am still glowing. I can watch those replays, and I do watch those replays over and over again. I know when the Phillies won the World Series in 2008, it didn't have this kind of lasting effect that the Eagles have had in winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think they were just such big underdogs.
Yeah, but these dogs got to eat, and they did. Anyway, so I was born in Philly. I was, my first the first 3 years of my life were in South Philly, and then my parents moved across the river to a town called Moorestown, which is not to be confused with Morristown, which is in the north. It's like Morristown's like a suburb of New York. Moorestown is 13 miles away from Philly. And that's where I grew up in, a nice suburban town, Quaker town. Went to high school there. And then I went to Rutgers. I was, mediocre student. I mean, I had, to tell you the truth, I had a great difficulty reading. I didn't really know, I couldn't read. I mean, or it was very ponderous to read. And whenever we had these books to read, it was impossible. But somehow I got through school and even college more based on intuition than any kind of academic skill.
Was that related, and that's great info to share, thanks for sharing that. Was that related to perhaps ADD, or was it just a vision thing, or?
I don't know what it was.
Got it.
I was never diagnosed in any way.
Got it.
It's just that, I'd read a sentence and I'd kind of forget. I kind of comprehend.
Right.
The wholeness of it. And that changed, and I'll tell you how it changed. But I went through college based on intuition more than any kind of any ability to read the stuff. And it was always a big stress to me that I couldn't read or I had trouble reading. I understood each individual word, and if I took the time, and it took forever to get through it, and but when I was the second semester of my senior year at Rutgers, which was in 1968, so my 50th college reunion is coming up this spring. I learned the practice of Transcendental Meditation, and I really fell in love with it. I mean, I learned much too late to salvage a lackluster academic career, but it really helped me in many, many, many ways. And in one way, it really helped my reading. I just started to enjoy reading, and it just kind of released some stress or tension in my brain or something.
Yeah, wow. Wow, it almost sounds like it was an attention deficit challenge, and then the meditation really helped that. Now, how did you come upon TM there, Transcendental Meditation? I mean, I recall the story.
In college.
What's
in
that?
College, in college, I was a rock drummer. I had a little rock band, and during that time, I was really into the Beatles. I mean, child of the '60s. I mean, I would hinge on every word. I mean, I just drink everything in, everything that was written about them, everything they sung. I mean, I just analyzed their songs so deeply. I certainly wasn't alone in this regard. And then I saw in Time magazine or some magazine like that an article about the Beatles, and it said that they were involved. Had just gotten involved with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi,
Right, right.
And I'm thinking, what is this? What are they? These are guys that they have everything they could possibly want. What are they? How do they get sucked into this guy? But the more, but I was intrigued by that, and certainly the press was. This was 1967. And I heard that Maharishi was going to be on the Johnny Carson show. I don't know if your listeners know who Johnny Carson is.
Of course.
Johnny Carson was before Leno and before Jimmy Fallon. He was, hosting that show, and he was, a brilliant interviewer and a very funny man. And I wanted to watch Maharishi, and the reason I wanted to watch the show was I wanted to hear stories about the Beatles.
Sure.
That was what I wanted to hear. And Johnny Carson introduced Maharishi before he came out on stage. Said, here's a man of love and peace, and wherever he goes, he just effervesces with joy and giggles and all that. And what I fully expected was a typical guest on the Johnny Carson show, someone who comes out and tells stories and crack jokes. That's what I was expecting. And here's this man, when Maharishi came out, he just kind of floated out. I mean, with such grace. And he had this bouquet of flowers, and he gave Johnny Carson a flower. Johnny Carson gave him a flower. And then when he sat in that chair that every celebrity sits next to Johnny Carson in, I noticed that there was a deer skin. First of all, the seat was covered with a sheet, like a silk sheet.
Wow.
And there was like a deer skin sitting on it. And then Maharishi sits on that, takes off his sandals, and he sits cross-legged. I was so taken by him. I mean, I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't understand it. I was just taken. And Johnny Carson was very nervous. I can see that, this was a typical kind of movie star he was dealing with. This was someone who had like a lot of presence.
Sure.
And anyway, after he walked out, and I asked my friend, what was he talking about? And he said he was talking about meditation. He wants people to meditate. I didn't even get it. I didn't even hear it. I mean, it was just. But anyway, from that, a couple things that stimulated me to start. I won't make the long story even longer. But I started in March of 1968. As a matter of fact, what's today? Today's the 6th. In 5 days, I will be celebrating my 50th anniversary of starting Transcendental Meditation.
Of starting what?
Starting TM. I started TM.
Oh, got it. Perfect.
And it was transforming. It transformed everything. It just transformed everything. And I fell so much in love with it that I became a teacher of TM in 1970.
Right.
I taught it full time for the next 10 years. And to me, it was the be-all and end-all of jobs or occupations or professions. That's all I could ever want to do. I enjoyed it so much. And then Maharishi, who I was studying with and taking advanced programs and just really drinking in everything.
Right.
He wanted people to go to Fairfield, Iowa, a university established in his name here in Fairfield, and he wanted people to go there. Now, I'm an East Coast boy, and I like the sports and the sophistication and the food and all that. I don't want to go to Iowa, for God's sake. Who goes to Iowa? But he was really insisting. He was really asking people, not commanding, but really recommending strongly. And I think, I'd like to follow his advice. I mean, everything he's said and every direction he's given me has turned out to be golden in every possible way. That, all right, so I'll go to Iowa. If he wants me to go to Iowa, I'll go to Iowa.
So,
and, being a TM teacher in Fairfield, Iowa, it's like being a Toyota in Tokyo. I mean, I couldn't follow through on my profession of teaching people. That's how I made a living. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was surviving. And at that time, I figured, all right, if I want to stay here and enjoy this place, which I saw the huge value in being in this group, I had to start a business. So that's how I started businesses. I don't know. You may want to ask me a question, or should I just keep on rambling?
No. This is beautiful, and that's where I was just going to do a quick recap. So we're a mediocre student. We are absolutely in love with the Beatles. We're in a band, and by we I mean you. And then that leads you to this encounter with the Maharishi, and interestingly enough, and I missed that part. You were teaching for 10 years, and somewhere along the way you realized to supplement income you were going to start a business, and that's all I wanted to. I mean, that's a perfect kind of recap and summary. So then you begin the business, and what's that first company?
All right. So I moved to Iowa. And the first thing I noticed was ice cream in Iowa was abysmal. It was awful. I referred to it as cow snot. It was that good. And it was gummy, and it was overly sweet, and it was just not. There was no artistry to it.
So you saw an opportunity.
My initial idea was, I just needed a few dollars. I didn't need to make a big business. I didn't need to be anything. I just need to support myself and buy tofu and zucchini. That's all I needed. So my initial idea was to go to the local 5 and 10 kind of store, the Woolworths kind of a store, and get like this homemade ice cream maker and get some cheap freezer, a household freezer, and then I'd make ice cream and I'd sell it to the people in town, just to my friends and all that. And it was such a stupid idea because I had no idea how ice cream was made.
But you took action. I mean, it's really incredible. That
was the initial idea. I didn't act on that idea. Anyway, in explaining to people that I was going to make ice cream, and one guy asked how I was going to do it, and I came up with it, told him I was going to do it this way. They said, well, that's stupid. You can't make a commercially grade ice cream with a homemade ice cream freezer and a kitchen refrigerator. You put it in your freezer, and ice crystals will form. It'll be very unpleasant, and it's basically unsaleable. Because when you have ice cream and it gets melty, and then you put it back in the freezer, it gets this. Everyone has experience. It gets very coarse and icy.
Right.
So, and he told me that he knew this guy in Texas that sold used ice cream making equipment. So he gave me the phone number. So I called this guy up. And he said, yeah, I have everything you need to have a little homemade ice cream parlor. I said, this is great. I said, how much would that cost? He said, $7,000.
Ooh.
And I thought, if I had $7,000,
right,
I would need to start a business. And I thought the idea was dead at that point. I said, all right, I'll think of something else. But then I thought, all right, here's the obstacle. I said, how do I get $7,000?
Yeah, $7,000, by the way, is a ton of money back then, especially, right?
1979. It was a lot for me. And I thought, well, I'll just get investors. So my offering memorandum was a handwritten, half of a legal page. It was handwritten. If you give me this much money, you'll own this much of the business, and you'll also be entitled to a lifetime supply of ice cream. That was my offering memorandum. And I first approached a very established, venerable, old-fashioned, conservative financial institution to invest in my ice cream company. In other words, I asked my mother. And my mother said, my mother's probably just like your mother. She said, oh, my son, my glorious son. It was great. Of course I'll invest in your ice cream business. So she agreed to give me $2,000.
Wow.
I'm thinking, who's next? Well, Dad, of course. Immediately called up my father.
Yeah.
And my father, probably exactly like your father, said, what are you, some kind of a nut? You've already suckered your mother for $2,000. We're done here, Jack. We're done. Anyway, so then I worked my friends, and it took about 2-3 weeks, and I was able to raise $7,500.
That is unbelievable.
and another loan for $2,500. So I had $10,000.
Incredible. So you you ran up against an obstacle, and then you just got creative. You got resourceful.
Yeah.
And then what was that ice cream company called?
Well, it was called the Great Midwestern Ice Cream Company.
Fantastic. And then did you end up selling that?
We'll get there.
Okay.
I don't know how much detail you want, but this. My first act as chief executive officer of the Great Midwestern Ice Cream Company was to send this man in Texas a check for $7,000. Did I know this man in Texas? No. Did I have any idea what I was buying? No. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know how to operate it. I didn't know how to hook it up. I knew nothing.
Oh, no.
I sent this man a check for $7,000.
Oh, no.
And 2 weeks later, this moving van arrived. It was like filled to the brim with shiny stainless steel stuff, all these mixers and pipes and boxes and freezers and things, so many things. Anyway, it took about 2 weeks to hook it up and about 1 billion phone calls to this guy in Texas about how to run it. And it was complicated because it didn't take, you just got to plug it into the wall.
Right.
Special electricity, 3-phase electricity. I didn't even know what that was. I had to learn what that was. Anyway. So in November 8th, 1979, I made my first ice cream. And it was fantastic. It was by far, without question, the best ice cream in the whole world. I had never tasted anything close to it, but Haagen-Dazs, Benedict, nothing compared to this. It was so good. That's the good news.
Yeah.
The bad news is I'm starting an ice cream business at the beginning of an Iowa winter. And I proceeded to lose my shirt. I mean, I'm surviving on ice cream and maraschino cherries. I got no customers. I've got no, it's awful. And for the 2 months and we got snow up to our eyebrows. I mean, it was like crazy. And the only thing I could think of during that period was expand. I've got to expand.
Oh, really?
So I figured, all right, where am I going to expand to? I'm going to expand to Iowa City. Now, Fairfield is 60 miles south of Iowa City. Iowa City is a big university town. University of Iowa is there. I had never been there before. But I figured I'm going to go to a bank in Iowa City and borrow the money that I need to build a store in Iowa City. So the day before, I'm figuring out how much money I needed to raise. And I'm just, with zero research, I'm just picking numbers out of the air. Oh, this probably costs $500. This probably costs $1,000. I'm just a big idiot. There was no internet. But the number came to $23,900. And I drive up to Iowa City. I borrow a car. I drive up in the snow to this, and I see a bank. I said, I'll go to this bank. And I had written my needs out. My offering memorandum now is like no longer a handwritten half a page. It's now like typewritten 4 pages, but only like a paragraph or two on each page. I try to flesh it out, but anyway. So I go into this bank, and I announce that I'm there to borrow $23,900. And the receptionist was a little bit of a shock. He said, "What's this for?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to build an ice cream store in Iowa City." She said, "Well, you should see the commercial loan officer." I said, "Fine." She said, "Well, he's not in town right now. He's not in the bank right now. He'll be here tomorrow, so come back tomorrow and you can meet with him." I said, "Ma'am, I just drove up in the snow in Fairfield to borrow a car. I got to see somebody." She said, "Well, maybe the senior vice president will see you."
Nice.
So I said, "Okay, I'll see him." So the senior vice president said, "Yeah, all right, send him back here." So I went to see him. This old guy wearing those reading glasses at the end of his nose, looked like a frog. He would look over his glasses at me. And it took him about 7 nanoseconds to read my offering memorandum.
Right.
And then he looked at me and he said, "Son, you've got no experience. You have no collateral. Your business has no equity. You show no operating profit." Like I'm on the verge of tears. He's like squashing my dream.
Right.
Then he stabbed me in the heart. He said, and besides, for what you want to do, $23,900 is not nearly enough. So I'm thinking, all right, there's more fish in the sea. I'll go to another bank. As if another bank is going to tell me something different.
Right.
Anyway, so I just wanted to cut to the chase. I didn't want to linger with this guy anymore. I said, well, are you interested? And he said, yeah, I'm very interested. And he ended up lending me $35,000.
Wow.
But the truth be told, it did not take $35,000 to build that store in Iowa City. It took $55,000.
Yeah. But what did he say? Why he? So he's going through the whole list. What's that? I
became friends with him down the road, and because the store in Iowa City was quite a hit. That's how I became a minor celebrity in Iowa City. So I became friends with him, and I said, Dick, why did you lend me the money? I mean, from a banker's point of view, I failed every test. I had no equity. I had no experience. I had no collateral. I had no operating profit. I mean, why on God's green earth did you give me the money?
Correct.
He said, I lent you the money based on your enthusiasm.
That's what I'm looking for.
Then he said...
That actually fits perfect into one of our course modules is dedicated to energy and enthusiasm. So now I have a beautiful anecdote there. Go ahead, keep going. Perfect.
And then he said, and besides, the day you came was my birthday. And here you were bringing me ice cream on my birthday. All right, so let's fast forward 5 years. People magazine is having a national ice cream competition. And all their writers from all over all the country are trying to have been given the job to find the best ice creams in their area. So there are 30 regions. The country was divided up in 30 regions, based around the major cities. Well, People magazine didn't know I existed, and I didn't know that this competition existed. So I was falling between the cracks. Iowa City was just not, didn't have a writer that was responsible for it.
Right.
Anyway, the writer from Kansas City was doing her homework very well. She called the librarian in Columbia, Missouri. Columbia, Missouri has a big university. University of Missouri is there. And she was asking the librarian if there was any good ice cream in Columbia that she should consider in this article. And the librarian turned out to be a recent graduate of the School of Library Science from the University of Iowa. And she said, well, if you're doing a great story on ice cream, don't overlook Great Midwestern in Iowa City. So the lady calls me up, and she doesn't introduce herself. She doesn't tell me about People magazine or that she's a writer or she's not at this competition. All she asks is, how far do you distribute your ice cream? And I said, well, sometimes someone buys an ice cream cone and they walk around the block. And then she introduces herself. She explains the story, the People magazine competition and all that. And then she says, but I don't know if I can include you. And I said, if you're having a competition to find the best ice cream in America and you don't include us, you'll only find the second best ice cream. Anyway, so she said, all right, I asked my editor if Iowa can be a part of my region. The editor says, yes, let him send it. So we packed it off to Kansas City. And needless to say, we won hands down in Kansas City. And then a sample of our ice cream was then sent to the Time Life building, where all, the winners from all the regions were sent to Time Life. And they put together a very sophisticated panel, not only the movie stars and the famous athletes, but also people that were legitimate, food critics. And we came in first place in New York, so we ended up being declared by People magazine the best ice cream in America.
That is phenomenal. Now,
anyway,
go ahead.
Anyway, Nancy Reagan ended up tasting the ice cream, insisted it be served at White House functions. And here I'm married like 2-3 months, where we get an invitation to the White House.
Oh.
Or let me back up. The ice cream got an invitation to the White House, and my wife and I were told we could tag along.
That is unbelievable.
And the event was the president's annual picnic for all the members of Congress and their families. So I got all my friends in D.C. to scoop the ice cream out, and I worked the crowd. I got to meet the president. Anyway, during this time, I'm like being interviewed, I got pictures in Forbes and Fortune and Newsweek and New York Times, and I'm on Good Morning America and Today Show and all the. I mean, I got a garbage bag filled with articles from all over the country and magazines and television clips and all that.
And it's all free pub too, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Beautiful.
I had to travel a lot, but in 1988, I ended up getting pushed out of the company I founded.
Just like Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
So
not as rich, and I had signed a non-compete with the venture capitalists, the investors that invested in the business, that if I left the business for any reason,
right,
that I couldn't go back in the ice cream industry.
Well, that's okay. Then you went on and founded a telecom company, and
that grew to be 100 times larger than the ice cream company at its largest point. In fact, after starting a telecom company with no knowledge of telecommunications.
This is absolutely insane. And yeah, I mean, I promised you we'd keep this, within a certain amount of time.
Well, that's the trouble with interviewing me. I shoot my mouth off and I can't get stopped.
You were. I mean, I'm riveted. I'm just floored. You capped it with going to the White House, but it's occurred to me, that we haven't. I may have to bring you back.
All right.
We have not gotten.
I've got no life. I'll come back.
No. So now I want to get into the book and just.
Okay. Hang on. Let me just do the telecom thing. I do it in 2 sentences.
Okay, you're fine. You're fine.
Starting knowing absolutely nothing about telecom and just going to my friends with my hat in my hand and saying, I could save you some money here and there. That company, over the next 9 years, grew to employing 1,100 people worldwide. We had customers. We had 250,000 customers in 100 countries. And I took the company public, and the 9th year that I was involved, it grossed $338 million.
And that's Telegroup or something?
Yeah, Telegroup. And
yeah.
Inc. magazine declared it the second fastest growing company.
Yeah, I really am going to have to bring you back because we've set the table now. I want the listener to know, and I'm sure they're still with us, that Fred just doesn't write lightly about the lazy way to success and not have any success behind him. He has mountains and mountains of success behind him, and so that leads me to the kind of the founding principle. I read the story briefly, but just tell it quickly. What made you feel compelled, if that's the right word, to write the book, and then we're going to move into the philosophy behind it and why you think it's important. So take it from there, please. Okay.
Well, when I got pushed out of the ice cream business, I'm reflecting on where I screwed up. But trying to think, what if I did something else? What would be my philosophy of success? How would I move ahead?
Right.
And so I started to give talks. Professional talks. And I'd always end the story, the ice cream story, at a high note. I wouldn't tell them that I was pushed out and humiliated and embarrassed and all that. But there was one story an experience that I had in terms of moving the safe. And
yeah. I was hoping you were going to go there. Perfect.
I can go there now, or I don't know how you want to do this. But,
no, please go right into that. You would tell the story about the safe. Tell it.
All right. So I was way before I was involved in doing the ice cream business. I was involved in building this graphic design studio, and the studio was in this old hotel that used to be really super fashionable, but now it had fallen on old days. And when we got our space, we looked at the floor, And, it was all black and ugly, but we said, God, there's a beautiful parquet floor underneath all this. We just have to sand it, and refinish it. It'd be beautiful. And all the fittings on the windows were like brass, but they're all corroded. But if we shine them up, this place, and paint it, it'd be gorgeous. And we got really inspired. But unfortunately, in the middle of the floor was this huge, rusty, black, enormous safe lying on its side. And, there was like 6 of us, and we just said, all right, let's move this out. We got to move this out. So we got surrounded it. On the count of 3, we'll lift up the safe, and move it out. Well, we counted 3, and we tried to lift that safe. And I tell you, I strained every fiber in my body. Everyone did. And that safe didn't budge. Not even a molecule's worth of width did that thing budge. So we said, all right, we'll slide it out. So we all get behind it, and we try to get our shoulders still, 1, 2, 3, and we're grunting and nothing. That safe doesn't move a micron. And we are pissed, and we're cussing, and we're dirty, and we just are frustrated, and this safe guy. Anyway. So someone says, well, we'll just cover it with a tablecloth and we'll put flowers on it. But it wasn't the right height. Nothing was right about it.
Which I thought that was a creative solution, but the one forthcoming is much better. Anyway, throwing a tablecloth on it. That's funny.
So we all go to lunch. And I'm the first one back from lunch. And there's another guy from the group, but he wasn't involved in the morning's fiasco and trying to move the thing. And he's on the floor with a screwdriver and a hammer. And he's tapping the safe with a screwdriver, just kind of probing here and there and thinking. And I said, Adam, what are you going to do? What are you doing? He said, I'm going to move the safe. Do you want to help? I said, I've seen the movie. It's 7 guys. We're going to the tablecloth. We can't do it. It's 2 hours. And he said, no, I think we can think of a way. I said, what do you have in mind? He said, I have nothing in mind, but I think we can think of a way to move this safe. And he's tapping away with the hammer. And I'm thinking, all right, so I go in the basement of this old hotel. And I start to look for things that could probably be helpful. So I start grabbing things, and I just drag them upstairs. And what we ended up doing is we tapped the blade of the screwdriver underneath the safe, between the floor and the safe. We just tapped it in there.
Yep.
And then I took a pipe, and I put it on the handle of a long pipe, about 6 foot long. And I slid it over the handle of the screwdriver. And I put a 2x4 at the fulcrum. The 2 of us got to the other end of the pipe and pulled it way down, and that lifted up the safe maybe a half an inch. I think we were just doing it to see if it wasn't bolted to the floor, because it sure felt like it was bolted to the floor. Anyway, while it was up, I slid a magazine underneath. And then we did it again. We adjusted the fulcrum and did it again. I put a second magazine, a third magazine, and lifted it up until it was high enough to slide a pipe underneath. We went to the other end, we jacked up the other end, set some more pipes underneath, and the 2 of us, like we were 2 old ladies, pushing a baby carriage on a Sunday afternoon through the park. We just, and I'm going to use a word because it was true, we effortlessly slid that safe out of the room. When one pipe would fall out the back end, I'd lift it up, and I'd saunter up to the front and put it up to the front of the safe. And it just rolled right off. Now, we did not avoid the work, or we did not avoid the task. We just avoided the work. Yeah. We accomplished effortlessly, 2 guys accomplished effortlessly, what 7 guys, 6 guys, whatever it was, working hard could not accomplish. And in that formula, I saw that success is inversely proportional to work. The harder you work, the less success you will have. The less work you do, the more success you'll have. You just have to know where to put the lever, because everything has a lever attached to it. You just have to figure it out, whether it be how you write, telling jokes, telling stories, playing music, shooting a basketball, building a pyramid. And the 2 of us, after we got that safe out of there, we were convinced that the 2 of us single-handedly could build an Egyptian pyramid.
I bet.
And not do any work in the process. That's the key. Finding the magical way where doing less accomplishes more.
Absolutely.
A magical way where doing less accomplishes more. And that's why I wrote that book. And it's a funny book, but it's, my Latin teacher, when he read it, said it has gravitas.
Right.
It has substance. It has seriousness. And it is. And I tell you, and I give all the secrets on how to lead, how to have good luck, how to avoid work. And I started writing that book after the ice cream fiasco. I had written, maybe a half, 75% as a rough draft. And then Telegroup somehow started, and I was applying the principles that I learned in that book, or I learned that I thought of in that book. I applied to Telegroup, and I never required anyone to work. I never required anyone to stay late, to burn them in. None of that. I just wanted people to have fun and enjoy, and my job was to be the cheerleader and to make sure that they were safe. Just wanted to make my employees happy. The environment should be happy. They should be living everything should be healthy and happy and joyful and be well paid at the same time. And that's what happened. And the thing grew like a weed. I couldn't believe you wouldn't believe how fast we were growing and and the problems that come with fast growth, like running out of space, having to beg people to move out of their offices, pay people to move out of their offices so we can take them over. Just furnishing new employees, getting them computers, getting them trained, and then we blow out databases, have to replay.
So, So, Fred, that is, first of all, it's all absolutely amazing. The management style that's based upon, the lazy way to success. I love that component. And I think I want to circle back to that. What I'd love is, I think at a certain point, and I could be totally wrong, I'm speculating that the safe story, the one about leverage, led you, as you were writing perhaps, to get more and more into studying maybe what the great thinkers thought about these ideas, what philosophers thought, some physicists. You reference all of the above in the book, and I'm wondering if any of those big ideas stand out. I have the book marked up, and I have it open to a couple chapters, but I'm thinking I'd love to hear it in your own words. These ideas about becoming, what leverage looks like when it's more simple and more subtle, and how physics gets into these subtle layers. All right, a quick timeout. Again, thank you so much for joining me and Habits to Goals. I hope you are digging this interview. I want to share with you something pretty cool we've just thrown out there. You can catch this either live or recorded. It's a webinar I put on. It's about 60 minutes. It goes through 9 major tips. It gives you background about the habit factor, a little bit about me, and an overview and intro to something we have put together called the 28-Day Breakthrough. Fantastic course. Really, the goal of which is, it's the old, you don't feed a man a fish or woman, you teach them to fish. And so this is built above, beneath, around the habit factor, really gets in depth with mission, vision, values, some great modules around goals in particular, energy, the mastery mindset. Those are modules that are included. Anyways, check it out. All you have to do is go to thehabitfactor.com/28. That's the number 28 day, D-A-Y, webinar. That's thehabitfactor.com/28-day webinar. You can get the info, sign up, and hopefully we'll see you on the inside. And with that, let's get back to this fantastic interview. Cheers.
All right. First of all, there's a principle in physics, probably the principle in physics, called the principle of least action. That every motion that's existing in the entire universe, whether it's a light wave, whether it's an atom, an electron, whether it's a planet, whether it's a star. Everything will take the shortest, simplest path, the easiest, simplest. This is how Mother Nature designed it.
Yeah.
Principle of least action. Everything, and when time gets factored in, the shortest path between 2 points is not necessarily a straight line. It's, when time is involved, it turns into a geodesic, which is the shortest space-time route, according to physicists. Anyway, so the whole universe is designed to take the lazy approach. As a matter of fact, in my musical that I referenced earlier, there's a song by Mother Nature.
The musical.
And she sings, "I'm one lazy mama." She explains that she's one, everything in the universe goes by her vision of taking the easiest, laziest path. And she's one lazy mama. Anyway, it's a great song.
No, and the first thing that comes to mind, and we've talked about this on other episodes of the show, not on the interviews, but just kind of some of the mindsets that we will go through. And one reference point that we use often is water, and I think water is a brilliant example of what you're talking about.
Yes. You
put water anywhere, and it will either conform or it finds the easiest path. That's what it does, right?
Fine. Yes. Now, it turns out that in physics, in nature, the subtler one goes, the more power is there.
Right.
Subtle is more powerful. Subtler is even more powerful still. The subtler, the more powerful. And you can think in terms of, a negative example would be, understanding destructive power.
Right.
Like a hammer on the surface, you can hit something and create a dent here and there. A stick of dynamite weighs the same as a hammer, but because it's working on a more subtle level, on a chemical level, a molecular level, there's greater power involved. An atom bomb, because it's working on an even subtler level still, has even greater power.
Yep.
Hydrogen bomb even more. So the subtler we go in nature, the more power. Now, the reality is, when one is a writer, when one understands nuances of words, the subtle power of words, the writing is stronger, more influential, more beautiful. Everything, like a musician, when he just moves his finger very slightly, just creates that little wiggle or something, it just creates something even more beautiful. But it's because it's more subtle. Anyway.
Well, no, I love that. For let me throw something out. You just reminded me. There's the great saying, Fred, that it's the silence between the notes that makes the music, and you can't get any more subtle than silence. So yes. Music doesn't exist without silence. Anyhow, yes. Go on. Well done.
So from the point of view of meditation, transcendental meditation, which we talked about earlier.
Sure.
What is happening is that there's the technique which is completely easy, effortless. There's no effort, there's no working, there's no concentration, there's no control. There's an effortless process going on. It's like diving. You just create this correct angle, and gravity pulls you through the water. It's not like you don't have to work to dive. You just establish the correct angle, and and you dive. But it's the same thing. You establish the correct angle in meditation, and that you learn how to do this. It has to be taught. It's not something you can learn out of a book. Transcendental meditation cannot be learned out of a book. And by practicing it, you start to experience subtler levels of your thinking process. You experience a thought at subtler, more refined, more delicate levels. And as the mind is settling down, the body starts to experience a very deep, profound rest, much deeper than any kind of sleep. It's been measured to be much deeper than sleep, because as the activity of the mind becomes less, the body's activity becomes less. And then one experiences the most subtle impulses of thought. It's from practically silent mind, just these little teeny impulses, and then you transcend that and experience the basis of thought, one's own consciousness in its purity. You're not conscious of anything. It's like you're just consciousness becomes conscious of itself. And that experience has such a profound positive impact on how you, when you come out of meditation, on your thinking, on your creativity, so you're harnessing the subtle power of the mind, and you're enlivening those values, and then you bring it out into activity. So you approach your life more creative, more intelligent, more rested, more energetic, and anyway. So that's that. I think that inspired me to finish the book, because once my days at Telegroup were over, someone was asking me if I had to work hard, and I said, no, I don't believe in work. It's against my religion. And he said, well, how do you be successful? And I said, well, and I gave the story of the safe to this guy, and he said, wow, where did that come from? And I said, well, I'm writing a long time ago. I was writing this book and on a lazy way, and I just forgot the whole thing, And
right.
He said, I want to read what you've written. And I said, no, I wrote it it was 15 years ago, and however long. I'd be too embarrassed, I'm a different person now. The book will make me cringe if I read it. He said, no, I insist that I read this book. I said, all right, I'll give it to you, but you have to know I was a different person. I was an unevolved schlump back then when I wrote this book. So you can't. It's not me. So I gave him the book. I printed it out. I didn't even read it myself. I just printed it out and gave it to him. Because during the, as you know, as the business evolves, you keep getting new computers and new computers and new computers. So I take the file that I wrote, back in the 90s or something like that, early 90s, and I keep transferring it to the new computer, but never really opened it up. It was just that file just kept transferred from hard drive to hard drive. Anyway, so I printed it out, sent it to him. The next day, I hear there's a shrieking on the answering machine. This is great! You have to finish this book. It's great.
Yeah.
Really? So I started to read it. I said, hey, that's pretty funny. So that's what prompted me to finish it. Anyway.
Yeah. No, it is. I recognize you probably have not read The Habit Factor, and I just want to say we've done a lot of parallel things in that we've backed it with, for instance, as it relates to habit, I have quotes from Confucius and Ben Franklin and Aristotle, and I just think what you've done parallels that in many ways, and so, for instance, here's something from Dr. Richard, I think it's Feynman.
Feynman, yes.
Yeah, and so
Nobel Prize winner.
That's right. Nobel Prize winning physicist. And I just want to share this with the listener. In physics, when you discover new things, it's really simpler. We have these integrations where everything is simpler than before. That is common to all of our laws. They all turn out to be simple things. You can recognize truth by its beauty and simplicity. And I would just add, it's just hitting me now, and integrity or integration. But that's from a Nobel Prize winning physicist. You can recognize these things by their simplicity and their beauty. And because this is called Habits to Goals, I just want to share there's a great parallel here when you get subtler and simpler. So, Fred, you may not know this, but one of the best, most taught goal achievement methodologies is something called SMART goals, and everybody teaches it, and it's an acronym: SMART, measurable, accountable, relevant, time bound. Those are the criteria in the acronym. That's what SMART means. But the challenge is, Fred, you end up with a very long to-do list. And what the habit factor says is, and it's along the lines of simpler and beauty and efficiency, and remember that word, efficiency, it just says simplify your goal. Break down what habits would you need to create, what 3 habits, 5 habits to achieve your goal more effortlessly, right? Mm-hmm. And, right. And so when we're talking about subtlety, I mean, this is where habit, one of the beauties of habit is that it resides, if it's fully formed, it resides in our subconscious. So it takes little or no conscious thought. Again, aligning your habits to your goals is just demonstrable proof here that it's the most efficient way to achieve your goals. This was before, 2009 as a method to goal achievement. It was not documented. So maybe this is why, among other things, I just get so excited about the philosophy and the physics that back up the lazy way to success. I think there's just a lot of great parallels here. So
yeah. No, as a matter of fact, your insight is brilliant. Making it a habit, because habits are they happen automatically.
Yeah.
It's your habit.
Yeah. So
you brush your teeth in the morning,
at a more subtle level, rather than trying, think about somebody like Stephen King, right? He cranks out, I don't know, let's say 20 novels a year. When he started, I'm sure there was probably effort. It was painful as he was writing, but as he developed the habit, now he wakes up, he opens the laptop, he probably doesn't think at all, and it comes out like music. I'm speculating, but I think that's the power of positive habits when they're aligned with your goals. So what you have done here is absolutely brilliant. I want to read one other thing here, and I have so many things, but we're just short on time. So reader/listener, listen to this really quick. Solutions to problems are always found on a more subtle, and in parentheses it says plentiful level, because subtler levels are more powerful, and there's that word, unifying. This is not just the lazy secret to solving problems. This is the only secret to solving problems. It is definitely a blueprint worth following. Fred writes, we do less when we perform subtly, and as a result, we accomplish more. This trend points to a sparkling conclusion that ultimately everything will be accomplished by doing nothing. Or as the good Dr. Fuller, and that's Bucky Fuller, the omni-weighable physical will be mastered by the omni-weightless metaphysical. And just to recap what Fred was saying there, if you start with the hammer, and the same size of the hammer is the dynamite. So you move from physical to chemical, and then molecular, and as you go down, you have, whether it's the atom bomb or the hydrogen bomb, you have more subtle levels becoming more powerful. And parenthetically, this is where we've all originated. So we get excited about this physical plane, but we've all come from nothingness, the ultimate subtlety, right? So
the unified field.
Yeah. So there's great oneness. All right, Fred. So I think we've hammered that home. Your story's unbelievable. I could talk to you for, I feel like, days. I'm so grateful you've taken the time. I want to touch on some questions I just ask routinely of my interviews, and I'll start with this one. If you were to talk to your younger 67, 68 self, what advice would you give you, knowing what you know now?
Jeez. Don't eat so much meat.
There you go.
I made some, from 68 on, I made some wise choices. So yes. I would listen to Maharishi more closely.
Got it.
Follow what he has to say more completely. That would be my advice.
Good advice. So this may be a tricky question, but because we're on the human experience in the human element, my guess is, just like everybody else, you experience tough days. I think I know the answer to this, but how do you, quote unquote, battle through tough days?
one's outer life and there's an inner life. If the inner life is established in silence and peacefulness, whatever is happening in the outer, the waves are rocky or smooth, if you're solid, if your core is well anchored, then there's no tough days. There's no, it gets tough when my wife hollers at me, but then I just know that it'll pass and I'll be happy again. That's all, I just go inside.
No, that's beautiful.
It's tough. I go inside and get marinated in that bliss, and then I come out and I enjoy. That's all. I
love it. We did a happiness webinar not too long ago, and one of the key points is exactly what you're talking about. It's the idea that if you were to look at your wellness as a mile deep, lake, then at the surface where it's windy, it could be an angry lake, right? But if you go deep down to the core, hopefully it's still and it's calm. And I think that's the distinction, just one man's opinion, between contentment and happiness. And I think, for another time, but contentment is made up of other things. So in any event, I love that. I love the inner and the outer, and it matches what we've talked about. How, and I think I may know the answer to this, how do you, Fred, define success?
How do I define it? Success? Well, success is a process. It's not a goal. Success is doing what you love, enjoying it. Because because there is no goal. If you put money as a goal, you're chasing an illusion. Because let's face it, all money is just some psychological trick that the government is. We all kind of agree that money has value, but it has no value. It's only because we agree that it has value that gives it value. You just if you're happy and fulfilled and creative and with your activity, then that's a success. That's success. It's a process. Success is a process. It's not a goal.
That's beautiful. Well said, sir.
Because think of Bill Gates or something like that. They have more money than God. Why do they keep wanting to make more? How much money more do you need? Just do something smart with it now.
And you hit it on the head. I mean, in fact, he can't, and he's literally trying to give it away fast enough, and it's because it's not the money, it's the significance and the meaning and the purpose that he can get with it. At least that's my take. So
it turns out giving is so much more fun and so much more fulfilling than getting.
Right.
So once you get it, then you give it, and then you'll enjoy it more. Because face it, how many pairs of cashmere socks do you need? How many?
Well, it doesn't matter. In my house, no matter how many I buy, my wife steals them all. So
okay.
So apparently, I need a lot. How about 2 or 3 of your best positive habits?
Well, I practice TM twice a day, so that's a great habit.
That is a great habit. You'd be surprised how many times that is mentioned as a top habit. So
it's between, if there's a choice between eating or meditating, I'll meditate. It's so important to me that I just hang my day on that structure. Twice a day I meditate, and everything else is, I make time for it.
Do you mind, is it a set time? I'm kind of curious.
For breakfast, I do it before dinner.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that. And another one perhaps, or?
A habit. I preserve my freedom. I like to be spontaneous. I like to be, I don't like things planned out for me, or I don't like to be bossed. I'm completely anti-authoritarian. So
I love that about you.
I'm vigilant about.
My sense is freedom is a very high value.
Yes, for me it is.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, how about 2 or 3? We're kind of rounding third here. 2 or 3 of your favorite transformative books that you could share with the listener.
Oh, jeez. Transformative books.
Just books books that had changed. Books that have really meant a lot to you. Books you maybe gift to people that are important.
It's an esoteric book. It's the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali.
Got it.
I'm particularly fond of this one translation by Mukherjee, but I really like that, and the Bhagavad Gita, and I particularly like Maharishi's translation. But those are 2 transformative books for me.
Beautiful. Second one's kind of hard to read sometimes.
Yeah, but if you read Maharishi's translation, he really gives some great insight into the nuances of the words, and why Krishna called Arjuna this name and not that name, and what influence he was trying to stimulate. It's very, very insightful. Anyway.
Yes, sir.
But in terms of being an entrepreneur, and this is probably a book that's so old-fashioned, but it's called the Entrepreneur's Handbook by a guy named White. I don't know, I forget his first name. That was really helpful in structuring a business. The Entrepreneur's Handbook.
Excellent, beautiful. And
so it's the spiritual to the hard, practical approach.
Say that last one.
Well, I mean, it's the Entrepreneur's Handbook is like really a practical guide.
Oh, got it. Yeah. No, that's good. So how about an app, a tech tool, a gadget, a website, something that helps you fill your day, or something you can't do without?
Oh, like I'm 72, and I read sports blogs. I read Huffington Post. I'm not a real internet surfer. But if people want to come to my site, I haven't updated it in years, but it's lazyway.net.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, lazyway.net. We make sure we plug that, reiterate that at the end of the show too. I wrote another book on sports. You must be a mind reader, because that's where I was gonna go. Keep going. Beautiful.
I wrote a book on sports which was based on a philosophy that my dear friend Stephen Yellen devised. It's called The Mentally Quiet Athlete. And I thought this book would just take sports by storm. I thought this, it's a completely paradigm shifting book on how to approach a sport. But, it never got off the ground, but it still exists. So if you go to mentallyquiet.com, you could get it, or it's on Amazon too.
So, just clarification, your dear friend Steve Young, as in Young?
Steve Young, Yellin.
Oh.
He was...
Okay.
He won the Florida State Tennis Championship as a high school kid, the same year that Chrissy Everett won the girls' side.
For a second I thought you said Steve Young. I'm like, whoa.
No, this is Steve Yellen.
That's fantastic, though.
And when he was the number 1 tennis player at University of Pennsylvania, and he ended up beating McEnroe. I think when McEnroe was a little younger. But Stephen had a zone experience, and he wondered for years how to replicate that. And he's come up with a formula
Oh God, I got to read that because my second book is called The Pressure Paradox, and I have an entire section or chapter devoted to the zone as well. So I got to find that book. But keep going.
The mentally quiet athlete.
Yep.
And I took Stephen's philosophy and I turned it into a story, so people can read a story, but the philosophy comes through. I started golf late in life. I started when I was 56. And I was terrible. I mean, you hit one good shot in 9 holes or 18 holes, but that's enough. That bliss of that great shot it keeps you coming back for more.
Yep.
But I had a 36 handicap, which was still generous but that's the highest you can get. They cut you off at 36, but I deserved higher than 36.
Right.
And then, Stephen. I was taking tennis lessons and all this kind of stuff, and Stephen told me his philosophy when I first met him, and he gave me a tennis lesson. But I would take tennis lessons from other people, and the instructor would have me running back and forth, and it was very mechanical. Do your this with your hand, and you this, you shift your weight like this, and all this kind of stuff, and all these kind of techniques of the mechanics of the backhand or the forehand and whatnot, the mechanics of the serve. Stephen does not teach mechanics. Zero technique. He teaches you how to think. And he just taught me, he said, I just want you to do this process. He basically told me, I want you to count. 1, 2, 3. The only thing you have to worry about is there is space between the 1 and the 2. And the 2 and the 3. That's all you have to worry about. As soon as I hit the ball, you start counting, which I did. And I got to tell you, my stroke, I didn't think about mechanics. I didn't think about footwork, anything. Everything just fell into place.
Wow.
That everything was more efficient. And I was running more than I ever did. And the rallies stayed longer than they ever did. And I never got out of breath. And I'm telling you, it was blissful. Before, with a typical instructor, you'd have to call an ambulance to take me off the court. I was just so sweaty and out of breath, and and I'm thinking that's how you become a great athlete. And I'm telling you, it's not. You have if you think properly, and that was just a rudimentary exercise that he gave me. He said the important thing is that there be a gap between the 1 and the 2 and the 2 and the 3. And I tell you, I never got more than 3. Count to 3. And I was hitting the ball back efficiently, with pace, with placement, and not thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about it. And Stephen has told me, he said, the perfect tennis stroke already resides in your brain, in your muscle memory, which is called muscle memory sort is called the basal ganglia. He said your best golf stroke is there. Your best tennis stroke. It already resides there.
And that's where habit resides too.
That's where habit resides. And you just have to let it happen. Just have to don't interfere with it. And he teaches a way, an effortless way, on how not to interfere with the flow of muscle memory to the body. Because once the front of the brain gets involved, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that thinks and decides and discriminates and has goals and I got to hit it over the lake. I got to get it on the green. I got to get it. I have to hit it. I have to hit it to that side of the court. As soon as the prefrontal cortex gets involved,
it's a mess.
It makes a mess. It slows down the flow of information from the basal ganglia to the body. And not only that, what also shuts down is the back of the brain, the cerebellum. And this is where the genius of athletes, this is where athletic genius resides. Because in the cerebellum, that's responsible for subtle motion, the fast twitch muscles.
Yep.
And as soon as, when you're throwing a curveball or something like that, there's a rhythm and your wrist has to snap in a subtle way just perfectly to make the ball curve.
Absolutely.
So one of the brain involved, the cerebellum shuts down, and what do? You hang a curveball, and the next thing you know, it's in the center field stands.
Yeah. So how's your golf game these days?
Within 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks of practicing Stephen's technique, it went from a 36 to an 18 handicap.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It just shaved us, because I was. But the point is, he does not teach technique, mechanics. We're in a golf swing. A golf pro, that he has dissected the golf swing into 1 billion parts. Your wrist should be like that. Your knee there. Your belly button should be like this. Make sure your head is down. Your shoulders should swing like this. You breathe. There's so many. The golf swing is so dissected that the wholeness of it is.
Oh yeah, you can overthink it into oblivion. Before I forget, your buddy Steve Yellin.
Llin.
Yeah. I want. I don't know if you're talking to him these days. So in the pressure paradox, I have about a chapter and an encounter with Rod Laver, if you know who that is. And so,
of course I do. The guy with a huge forearm.
Yeah. Well, and he also had the most Grand Slams for I don't know how long. So, yeah, I mean, a champion at the highest level of tennis. And we talked about performance and pressure and things like concentration and focus. So anyways, he's still doing well, alive and kicking in Carlsbad, California, and he's a great guy. So you can share that with your buddy Yellen.
So if you want to meet Stephen he's teaching golf with the David Ledbetter Academy down in Florida, and I think he's going to University of Minnesota to teach the golfers there. I think the girls golf team. He's got a contract with them, but his system is called the fluid motion factor.
I love it.
Yeah. Martin, he's worth getting to know. You should talk to him.
Yeah, I got to get him a copy of the Pressure Paradox, but I'm going to read his book for sure.
You should interview him. He's just a wonderful interview.
Oh, absolutely. And Fred, this has been incredible. I'm sitting here thinking I kind of feel like I'm in the banker's shoes 50 years ago or whatever, and your enthusiasm and energy has been overwhelming. It's been absolutely fantastic. You've been a dream guest. I'm bringing it. What's that?
You should cut the podcast into 2 so people don't have to spend half their life listening to it.
No, what's really weird, I try to keep it, around 40 minutes to an hour, but some of the most popular out there, some are 2 and 3 hours. So everybody's going to be fine. You were absolutely terrific. I think final questions involve, is there anything you would like to promote? Obviously, we can direct them to your website, which is thelazyway.net.
But take out the. It's just lazyway.net.
Oh, there's no the. My bad. Yeah. Sorry about that. Lazyway.net. Anything? QuietAthlete.com.
Hang on.
Say that again?
I have to check to see what it is. Hang on. Don't go away. I think it's mentallyquiet.com.
Perfect. We all have the ability to Google. Is there anything else you'd like to promote, share, a new book in the works, anything?
No new book yet. The thing people should learn, people look into tm.org.
tm.org. Absolutely.
That I would, above anything, don't buy my book. Go to tm.org. That's the main thing.
That's fantastic.
But do both.
There you go. Both is often the answer. All right, sir. Well, thank you so much. Again, I could do this probably for days. We barely scratched the surface, and you have been a terrific interview and guest, and I feel blessed and honored to have spent some time with you. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. As you can see, I shoot my mouth off and can't get stopped.
No, it's good. That's what's gotten you so far. All right, sir. Well, we will see you. Say goodbye to the listener.
All right. Listeners, goodbye. It was a pleasure. One of these days, I'd love to meet you all.
Yeah, maybe we can do an event, bring you in. All right, Fred. Today's episode is brought to you by audible.com. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from. If there's one thing I know, and I think Jim Rohn was the one who said this originally, in 5 years, the difference in your life will be largely based upon two things: the books you've read and the relationships you have fostered. Doesn't it make sense to take advantage of the downtime, whether you're on the road, on a run, in the gym, kill a couple birds with one stone, get a book going? It's phenomenal. The more people I turn on to it, the more compliments I get. Not that I've actually done anything. 180,000 titles to choose from. You get one free book a month, 30% off any other book. Again, check it out. audibletrial.com/habits to goals. I'm going to say that again real quick. audibletrial.com/habits to goals. And that is the number 2. And of course, when you support our sponsors, you are supporting the show. So thank you again. I am extremely grateful. We'll see you at the next episode.